Well, thank you for coming once again. I forgot to pass these out. Let me do it right now. While I do this, okay, just two and three. One is already passed out. We introduced ourselves yesterday, but maybe we could just go around and just say your name, just because there are new people today, as a matter of fact.
Buenas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sarah.
Sarang.
Shri. You want to
Sarang.
What's your name?
I'm from Hyderabad.
Hyderabad? I thought you were from Chennai.
I'm from Chennai. He's from Hyderabad.
Oh.
And we got married and we moved here. And he's new to the Baba.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Rachel.
I'm Carol.
Mitra.
Ira.
Fred.
David.
Tara.
And Rosie.
Rosie.
So let's see, what do we have here? We have, of course, Los Angeles. Let's make it as exotic as possible, and so you two won't be Los Angeles. Would you want to be Los Angeles or Iran?
What is the question?
I'm just trying to look at
Multicultural.
our more diverse places.
I want to be Los Angeles.
Okay, Los Angeles. And we can count you as Hyderabad and Chennai just to make it more exotic.
Yeah.
And Scotland, of course.
Oklahoma.
All right, there we go. Los Angeles.
Nice place to go through.
Oh, she
What would you make
can
it?
introduce herself.
Originally born in
Iranian.
born Muslim,
Yeah.
living in Los Angeles, but I am Indian, but
Okay.
I don't speak the language.
And Ira is from the foreign nation of New York.
Jersey.
New Jersey.
There's Morris.
I grew up in Brooklyn though, but that
Okay.
was a escape. So.
Yeah.
And I've mainly lived in the Bay Area, Washington, D.C. and
Yeah.
L.A.
Yeah.
So you lived in the condo in Washington, D.C.
I lived in the men's dorm of the city. And then I lived in a basement where I painted.
And you're from?
I grew up in Shaker Heights, Ohio, outside Cleveland. But I've lived a lot in the New York area, as well as Boston, Los Angeles, Chicago. But now I'm living in India for the next 7 years in Tiruvannamalai, South India.
Yeah.
Well, I was born on Long Island in New York, and I've lived a lot of time in California, but also over the U.S. and in India.
What city in Long Island? Huntington.
Yeah.
I used to live in Patchogue. And I lived in Huntington. And what's that guy that Cat's in the Cradle and the Pilgrim?
Cat Steve.
Cat Stevens.
No, there's another guy. Harry Chapin.
Oh,
Oh, Harry Chapin lives, used to be from Huntington, but New York Drive, as I lived on. Maybe that's true.
yeah.
How about that?
One of the main streets.
Cool. We got people from all over the place here. Wow.
We probably saw each other about. We didn't recognize each other.
You don't have Southern Hemisphere.
And there's a lady that married Paige here. She didn't introduce herself.
That's right.
Very good.
Mary Kay.
Very good.
Can you say where you originally from? What city?
Love Plenty.
Oh, you were born in California?
No, I wasn't. I was born in Montana.
Oh, Montana.
Yeah.
Big sky.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. Mansari knew when she met me. I said, "Oh, I'm from LA," and she goes, "No, you're not." She knew the vibration.
Oh, she knew.
Mary Kay, I get that now. It's like I always, yeah.
That's all we know now.
Mary Kay and Carol are survivors of the program up at Marana 2 weeks ago.
That's what they're here.
That's why they're here, right? So if I falter, they'll just sort of jump in,
Right, sure.
fill in the explanations. The difficult sections, I'll just have to turn to you guys.
We don't know where mom is from.
Oh, well, Mama was just there. She's from thinking side.
You're from Shiraz?
Oh,
Yeah, I'm from Iran, Shiraz.
Yeah.
something that I thought about when I got home last night. I was thinking about the book, the missing book.
Yeah.
The missing book.
Worth millions.
And I thought about the fact that Paramahansa Yogananda spent the last years of his life writing a book called Second Coming of Christ. And he specifically told his organization not to publish it until after the year 2000. So that book was not published.
Is it published now?
Yeah, it is. But he specifically said, don't release this to the world until after 2000. Have you heard anything, or do you have a feeling as to maybe that happened with Marival's book?
I have no idea.
Wasn't ready for it yet?
Yeah, I have no idea.
You have no idea.
Have they put really investigation of like a trail to find out? I mean, really go into it? Who was the last person known to have it?
Well, didn't you say yesterday, Eric said that the matter is taken care of or something?
Or Baba told Erich that, something to that effect, when Erich asked. Yeah, I don't know, there's been various people have searched. I think Alaba looked at one time, and
Searching for it.
it would be nice if somebody would write up a full history of everything known about the book. It would be nice to have all that information in one place, which I don't know that it is.
Because
What Baba said about it, what's supposed to be in it, who had it last. I think Ramju Abdullah might have been the last one who was known to have had it. And I thought maybe he brought it back to Baba, but that's not 100% for sure.
But it's funny how infinite intelligence was found in a dusty, closet?
Yeah, go down. Yeah.
And so possibly, maybe the book is somewhere that they've never... They probably torn everything apart.
Well, yeah, no, I don't. I would be. I don't think it's going to be at Mirazad or in the archives or anything like. I guess you never know, but it doesn't seem at all likely. Probably Baba gave it to someone and gave them orders. I mean,
Gandhi's seen it. Gandhi has seen it.
he saw a couple pages. Yeah, Gandhi saw a couple pages, and Adi Kirani also. Baba showed him a page or two or something, and he didn't remember what was in it. So, yeah, it's one of those. I mean, I'd love to see what's in it. The question keeps coming up in connection with infinite intelligence, and I really think that the best thing to say is we don't know.
Yeah.
It's really hard to sort of leave it at that, but what can we possibly say when we don't know what's in it? But it's right from this period. Right, exactly. Infinite intelligence was, if it was dictated as I'm supposed, it would have been right at the heart of the time Baba was working on the book. Well, last time we had started in on talking about some of the cosmic architecture and some of the cosmological principles. So I wanted to resume with that. We had talked about the relation to the individual and the universal as a very central theme in infinite intelligence. And I have here that quote. This is on universal. I'll read this out. Last time I did, but it's easier when you can see it for yourself. This is just from a Stanford Encyclopedia on Philosophy on the question of universals in philosophy. Depending on which of these items, universal features of singular things, their universal concepts or their universal names, they regard it as the primary, really existing universals. It is customary to classify medieval authors as being realists, conceptualists, or nominalists, respectively. The realists are supposed to be those who assert the existence of real universals in and or before particular things. The universal exists before or even without individual instances of it. The universal is real. The conceptualists, those who allow universals only or primarily as concepts of the mind. That is to say, a universal doesn't exist without individual things, but it does exist as a mental concept. Whereas nominalists would be those who acknowledge only or primarily universal words. There's no such thing as a universal, there's just a name that we have. And the actual things are just individual objects with no I know this. You're getting hit by this. We got into all of this. Well, the reason for bringing this up is that Baba appears very clearly to affirm that universals do exist, and they are we'll see later, associated with Ishwar, greater preserver, destroyer. So that aspect of the universal interacting with the individual is a fundamental part of reality too. That is like, I'm a human being. Well, apparently there's a universal human form, that's actually there. And the individual exists in a relation of a drop to the ocean. There's a, like the universal, animal form. Such a thing really exists, apparently. And the universal animal form is not God. This isn't real, ultimately. It's not the reality. It's not the infinite ocean of God. So this dynamic is part of our reality too. We're individual instances of things that are universals. So there's actually quite a bit of references to this in Baba's literature. In another seminar, we go into that. But now I'm going to come to the third of these, which is the universes or spheres. And let's see, we don't have, has anyone here read Infinite Intelligence? I don't think we have anyone here. Oh, we have a couple who have, yeah. Well, when you read it, one of the issues you really need to deal with that can be quite confusing is that Baba uses the word subtle in a completely different way. And it's just a word. I mean, it's just that Baba used the word differently again. He uses the word subtle to mean the whole inner world of the 6 planes of consciousness, right? And like God speaks in discourses, you're acquainted with the 3 spheres, right? What are the 3 spheres there?
Gross, subtle, and mental.
Gross, subtle, mental, yeah. And the subtle encompasses the 1st to 4th planes, or the 4th is kind of a threshold. And the mental sphere is the 5th and 6th planes. Well, in Infinite Intelligence, he uses subtle to refer to all of that, the whole 6 planes. So that's what the word means there. If you don't understand that, the book will really confuse you. But if you just realize it's a different use of that word. But then Baba does have a 3rd sphere, and he calls it the fine sphere. And any of you know what the fine sphere is?
Could we call it the soul?
It's not the soul exactly. It's a state of the...
Beyond God and beyond God's state?
It's not those either. It's actually part of... It's like, let's say the universe. In Mahapralaya, you know what Mahapralaya is? The dissolution of the universe. Where does it go? Well, it reverts to latency. That's the fine state of the universe. When we go to sleep at night, where do our sanskaras go? It reverts to latency. In that, let me get this, actually it's right in here somewhere, I don't need to. That crossing lines of the thinking and the imagination. This one here again. It's like, this is the subtle universe and this is the gross universe. That's why the diagrams in Infinite Intelligence show just 2 universes. It doesn't have a mental. Baba wasn't talking about the mental at that time. But when you go, like in sound sleep, it reverts to that. It reverts to the end point. It reverts to its start. So fine is the term Baba uses to designate what happens to bodies and universes in the state of sound sleep. It's latency. Right? Do you get that? Do you understand that? It's just a word Baba had. It's a very useful word, and I think we should bring it into the general discussion of Baba's philosophy and other things.
Question, don't you think, though, that fine, roughly speaking, corresponds to what he later called the mental sphere?
No, I don't, because he consistently says in sound sleep.
But is there not some indication that in sound sleep things rest in the mental sphere? Is that...
It probably has a relationship to the mental sphere in some way. But people who are mental conscious are awake.
True.
And they have sanskaras that are active there. But in the fine state, they're not.
All right.
Sound state. But it's probably...
It's a question mark.
It is, well, yeah.
Or at least for me it is.
Yeah. To me, it's very certain that he is referring to sound sleep, which is not the same state as a mental conscious soul would have.
Sure.
But there seems to be a closeness there, because the seeds are there in the mental sphere.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
They'd be located there, probably. I mean, it's at the root of mind, or at the root of the mental sphere. Something like that is probably the case. So this is this shows how these spheres relate to each other in the God speaks lingo, right? In fact, I have another one I'll show in a second, but in God speaks and the discourses, that is everything else of Baba's that we know of. There's a gross sphere, and that means the same thing in infinite intelligence. In God speaks, there's a mental and a subtle sphere, and those two together correspond to what is called subtle sphere in infinite intelligence. In infinite intelligence, there's a fine sphere, and there's no corresponding term in God speaks. You won't hear that discussed. It'll say latency, or words like that will get used. And both have a real sphere also. So this is one of the things you really have to get used to when you're dealing with infinite intelligence. In fact, I have a bunch of, let me show, where is this all? Yeah. This is another depiction of the same thing. So the subtle in infinite intelligence encompasses the 6 planes, whereas the mental is 5th and 6th in God Speaks, and the subtle is 1st and 4th in God Speaks. The fine has no corresponding term for it. So Baba gives a different model for the universe here. And this is, this would be let me give an analogy for this. I'll be saying more in a minute that I think helps to explain why Baba described things in this way. But let's suppose you're wanting to give a basic geographic description of the United States with mountains and plains, say. And I might say, well, the United States is divided into 2 fundamental geographic regions. There's east of the Rocky Mountains, and there's west of the Rocky Mountains. But then on another occasion, I might say there are 3 spheres. There's west of the Rocky Mountains, there's between the Rocky Mountains and the Appalachians, and there's between the Appalachians and the Atlantic coast.
Yeah.
Well, it's a description, It's not like America suddenly undergoes a huge geological upheaval when I change my description that way. If you really want to know what America's like, you got to go there, And the same thing is true of the planes of consciousness. If you really want to know what these 6 planes are like, you have to actually become spiritually advanced and experience them, because no description of them, that's the problem with, the human mind. It takes the map for the reality, the description for the reality. So at this time, Baba was describing it this way. And in fact, there's a very good reason why he was doing so, which takes us to our 4th cosmological principle here, which is the 3 states of sound sleep, dream, and wakefulness. Of course, you all know what those are experientially. This is universal human experience to pass through these various states. In Baba's cosmology, as in Vedanta, these are actually cosmic principles. They're not just states of our experience. They describe the phenomenal reality also. Okay, I'll try to explain this. There's a basic correspondence here between, here it is, these states of wakefulness and the spheres. That is to say, in sound sleep, you experience, or I don't know, we don't have a word for what your experience is when you're in sound sleep, but let's say, I'll use the word experience. You're immersed in, or you experience the fine sphere. In Infinite Intelligence, Baba says, in dream you experience the subtle sphere, or the subtle universe. And in wakefulness you experience the gross universe, right? So these three spheres actually correspond to the waking states. And this turns out to be very important. Are you getting this? You getting this correlation?
Yes.
So we have a fundamental correspondence that gets developed enormously in the course of Infinite Intelligence. So the reason why this would suit, you see, Baba doesn't really have, what will I say? In God Speaks, these three spheres, the mental, subtle, and gross, I'll just anticipate what we'll be going to next week. These are rooted in the triune nature of God. In God Speaks and other places, Baba said God has a triune, has three natures, knowledge, power, and bliss. And those are the foundation for the mental, for the subtle, and for the gross. Okay, we'll talk a lot more about this next week. Are you acquainted with this, or is this new stuff?
Yeah.
Knowledge, power, bliss?
Yes.
So, in God Speaks, this is really the relationship that Baba wanted to develop between knowledge and the mental, power and the subtle, bliss and the gross. When you get to chapter 8, he talks about that a lot. But in Infinite Intelligence, Baba doesn't have anything to say about knowledge, power, and bliss. He did in Tiffin lectures, given at about the same time. But what he really does have a lot to say about is the waking state, sound sleep, dream, and wakefulness. So his description of the universe is fine, subtle, and gross, these three, because this is the model that is useful in describing the cycle of wakefulness and going to sleep. Any questions about this? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to correspond the dream state and infinite intelligence with dream state and God Speaks. Do we talk about dream state, just the word in God Speaks?
Yeah,
we do.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Okay, so then I think maybe the order that should be the reverse, from God Speaks to infinite intelligence somehow, because we do have a dream state in God Speaks.
Well, I mean, the reason I'm going this way is because we're, infinite intelligence is our topic
you're right.
here. Yeah.
No, I'm just trying to make the correlation.
No,
but this really helps. Thank you.
Well, no, these need to be correlated to really, if you want to bring infinite intelligence into a relationship with God Speaks.
Yes.
Now, here's a reason why these three states are cosmologically fundamental. You know the divine theme, right? What is the divine theme?
This is too much snow.
Anyone?
Because onion is body.
I'm sorry.
He's cutting the onion.
Onion is
It's a shell, but I'll go to the other room. Sorry.
because they're making
Or I'll do non
You
vegetables.
must be too much yin. If you get the yin yang, you're more yin than yang.
I do.
Yes, you're more acid than alkaline. You need alkaline.
But we can't solve that right now. So
Yes.
yeah. You know what? Maybe I can go to a far corner of the room. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe in that
right in that
table
corner
over
there.
there. Green low.
Let me try that.
Or you can come right up here. I don't mind.
So the one thing,
Yeah.
So-
Onion. See.
whatever a
I'll sit outside
consciousness is, when they're in sound sleep,
Yeah.
they're close to the goal. Now,
They are.
In other words, a person could be totally illiterate as far as knowledge goes, but he sleeps like a baby.
Yeah, that's
And in
right.
sound sleep, he is as close to being in that state to where you're experiencing awake sound sleep, which of course
Right.
is realization. But the idea of it is so it's amazing. So every time somebody puts their head down on the pillow and
Yeah.
has a good night's sleep, they're in that place, defined place. Huh?
In fact, what happens in that state is that, coming back to this figure, everything, the entire universe reverts to the own point. And the thinking is in its original unvibrating state, which is identical to realization, but for the one missing element, as you said, you're not awake. That's the only thing that separates that state from God realization. But what happens to the body, what happens to your sanskaras, and what happens to the universe in sound sleep is it reverts to fine state. And fine is really an excellent word for this. We've got to resurrect this word. Baba's talk about Baba's metaphysics or theosophy, because you can see it's related. Fine is related to finite, right? Fine means infinitely finite. That is this point. It's there. Or we could say it's there if you want. It's on the own point. And in the original state, there is an ocean of reality. And the nothing, or the imagination, is a single point. And as we said yesterday, a point has no dimensions. It has no space. It has no surface. It has nothing. It doesn't exist, actually. That's what everything reverts to in the fine state. So fine is a designation for what happens to everything, bodies, universes, sanskaras, in sound sleep. That's what that word means in infinite intelligence. See?
So it relates to the dream state. I'm sorry, not dream state.
Sound sleep.
Sound sleep.
So sanskaras are dormant.
Dormancy would be another word
In
for
other
it.
words, in that state, you could have unbelievable billions to work out, but if you could get that sleep, it doesn't happen till you wake up again.
Yeah, I think in God Speaks uses the word dormant from time to time as a term for this too. Now, the whole journey of the divine theme, is the story of the journey of the soul, right? I don't know, Sana, if you know about the divine theme, but it's Baba gave an account of the journey of the soul. The soul originates as God, in God and as God, and with the whim of God, who am I? Creation occurs. And then the soul goes through the evolution of consciousness from stone through metal, through plant, through worm, fish, bird, animal, to human form. Then consciousness is wide awake, complete, infinite thinking in terms of our book here. And then eventually, after millions of lifetimes in human form, you go through the involutionary journey where you return to God. And it ends with the realization, I am God. The original question, who am I, is answered with I am God. That's the divine theme. Well, the whole divine theme can be characterized in terms of these states. That is, you originate in sound sleep, in the original beyond state. Before creation begins, God is sound asleep. After the whim occurs, who am I? Throughout the entire evolutionary journey, from stone to monkey, you're dreaming. Baba, it's subconsciousness, and it's a kind of a dream. Baba says this in God Speaks. When you get to human form, you're wide awake. There's nothing more that's why Baba says infinite thinking. That's his term in infinite intelligence for wide awake or full consciousness. You don't need any more consciousness. The problem isn't that you lack consciousness. The problem is what you're conscious of. Mm-hmm. And according to infinite intelligence, what are we conscious of? What are we thinking in infinite intelligence speak?
So the imagination.
The imagination. We're thinking the imagination.
So the dream state, our regular dream state now, is actually a taste of the subtle experience, because in dreams you can leap over tall buildings
Right.
and do everything else. But
Right.
actually, if you're on the planes, you're experiencing the dream state in reality.
Right.
So the energy that is there, you can use it as you please.
That's right. In fact, Baba says in Infinite Intelligence many, many times that when you're on the planes of consciousness, you're dreaming in full wakefulness. Wow. That's the difference. It's a dream state, but now you're awake. And when you realize God, you're sound asleep in full wakefulness. So the whole journey of the soul can be characterized in terms of these three things: sound, sleep, dream, and wakefulness. You see that? You get that?
Right.
So actually, like when you go back through the involutionary journey, it's like you experience the fine universe in full wakefulness. So these are tremendously powerful terms, actually, all of this. Let me show you another. Are you getting this? Are you following all this, all these correlations? I mean, they're very basic, but they're the whole journey of the soul, the whole game of creation is at its root unbelievably simple. But it's unbelievably difficult to become that simple. That's the problem. You just need to be wide awake while you're sound asleep. That's all you need to do. That's it.
You're kidding.
And it takes, 500 million births and deaths to learn to do that. But that's all that it takes. And to get on the planes of consciousness, what all that really means is dreaming in full wakefulness. That's what that state actually is. So this cosmic, you see, these three states, there's really a lot to them. There's a lot more than contemporary culture and science would realize that. Baba has let me just show you a hand in Baba's own handwriting. Just to bring this and picture it. Oh, no, here it is. Yeah, this one.
So, as you're looking through that, to be dreaming in a state of wakefulness is to reach to some state of being, right? As a human, as a thinking.
Yeah, the thinking, when you dream in full wakefulness, that means you're on the planes of consciousness.
You're a master. Or not, that's what it's saying.
You're a saint. You're an advanced soul. Yeah. You dream in full wakefulness. And here's a diagram that Baba drew.
When you dream in a full wakefulness, means that you are conscious of the imagination, right?
Yeah, you're still thinking the imagination.
Yes.
That doesn't.
Are you
That's
detached from it or something?
well. You're still bound.
You're still bound.
It's just you're thinking a higher form of here in infinite intelligence. You have the gross imagination and you have the subtle imagination.
Oh.
It's just that you're thinking the subtle imagination.
Isn't it a vibration that's higher?
It's a higher
It's a
vibration,
higher vibration.
but it's still a state of. Baba uses the term there, banda. A banda is a slave or someone who is bound. You know that word, banda? You're a banda still. You're a slave. You're a slave to the illusion. You're still thinking the imagination. It's just a higher kind of imagination, that's all.
Is that an airplane to get there?
Well, now this is a diagram. Where's that here? Let me just.
Yeah, 650.
Yeah,
Here
it's
it's 650.
yeah, that's another version of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different version.
Yeah.
650.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's on 648, figure 25.
Yeah, so this is Baba's own handwriting here where he shows this. I don't think it's in the packets. Is it in the Mikey, yes, I think it is.
650.
I think in those packets you can find it too, as a matter of fact. The Xerox packets for you who have it.
Galeria.
The invitation.
Oh, it's in,
Page 29.
oh, it's in the back of the book.
Yeah, you'll see page, Bobby's page 29.
640.
Yeah, here it is. It's this page and this.
Oh, it's in the packet.
Yeah, that everybody got.
It's in the packet.
I fixed it there.
It's, it's not listed. Oh, it's after, you go to the last 12, it says 29.
Yeah, this is Baba's hand. Page 29 is up there.
I don't.
Okay, I'll see what you're doing.
Now, this is a chart that reappears in Baba's literature again and again and again in many different forms. So here we have. Someone, can you read this? What this says?
False.
False.
Ordinary.
Awake state.
Awake state. Okay, that's what we're experiencing right now. Unless some of you are on the planes of consciousness. Anyone here on the planes of consciousness?
Oh, I am.
Okay. Rosie's way out.
Oh,
But people like me, last lifetime I had a tail. And was
Those were the days.
How about this? Can you just someone read that out?
False.
Ordinary.
Ordinary.
Okay. Why are these false? You're thinking the imagination. You're thinking imagination. Baba's term for false thinking, his definition of false thinking in infinite intelligence is thinking the imagination. Now, in that, thinking is real, right? But it's the imagination that is completely illusory. But the creation of the imagination itself, from nothing, from that finite point into the infinite universe, that is not false thinking. What is false thinking is when the thinking thinks it, right? When the thinking identifies with, when the thinking experiences that false universe. Baba uses the word false to refer to that. Okay? Do you get that? The idea? It's thinking the imagination that is false. The creation of the imagination, that's not false. Why not? Because it never happened. It does not exist. That's the point that we keep coming back to. The universe really and truly does not exist. The only thing that is false in this picture is us thinking that it does exist. That's
But I
the...
thought through that diagram you showed last yesterday was it just in one glance it got created,
Right.
the whole imagination, and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that in itself is not falseness because it never happened.
Okay.
But it's the thinking of it, it's the identification, it's experiencing it where falseness. So both of these states are false states. But now we get to ordinary sound sleep here, which is in the middle. And it's very interesting. Baba doesn't characterize it as either false or real. Because, well, anyway, a whole series of diagrams, 5 or 6 over 30 years, have the same characteristic. It's kind of hard to say what it is. It's the ordinary state, but you're not experiencing anything at all. But when you get into, now these are the planes of consciousness, the 6 planes. The divine true dream, and that's Gujarati. I think that's Turiya, which the 4th state means Turiya Vasta, i.e. 7 planes and their manifestations. By 7, he means planes 1 through up until 7. Okay. This is the divine dream because you're dreaming in full wakefulness. You're wide awake while you're dreaming. And he characterizes it as real. And Baba will do this from time to time. It's on the real side of things. You're not yet experiencing reality. You're still experiencing the illusion. But it's a real illusion, so to speak. But here, this is divine awakening, i.e. sound sleep in the wake state. And this is the state of God realization. Yeah.
Are you aware that you are realizing the false?
In which of these states?
4
1 and 2.
No, 4
No, 1 and 2 you're not.
Are you aware of the falseness?
Falseness of the false.
Yeah.
You know, we'd really need to ask someone who's in those states. I should think people in that state would be much more aware of it than we would. But you're still drunk. You're still deluded by it. You should ask the Svengyar. See what he says.
He knows the distinction, that's all it is.
I would think it one thing is that if you go into a trance state, that you get into a suspended state of being in which you're not actually thinking as such.
Thinking at all. Yeah.
But it's
Samadhi is
close
like
to,
that.
Yeah, it's close to actually sleeping.
Yes, yes. It's a kind of a wakeful sleeping. Baba has said it not in Infinite Intelligence, but in some of these Tiffin lectures. He explains that in those samadhi trance states, the mind is stopped completely, but intellect and egoism are still active and alive. So you're not realized yet. But so we see here how those three states generate 5. You see that? And this is a very pervasive theme in the course of, if we're studying God Speaks, I would really, in fact, let me just show you a chart from God Speaks where you can see the same pattern. Here we are. Can you pray? Let's look, coming from here, okay, realm of illusion. Can you read this? As I said, it's small. Atma's ordinary awake state. Atma fully false conscious. Soul's everyday gross consciousness. That's the ordinary awake state, right? So then what is this? Of those 5 states we saw. This would be 1 in our previous list. Which one would that be?
Dream.
Yeah. And what kind of dream? A false dream. Yeah, false ordinary dream. The kind of dream that those of us who aren't on the planes of consciousness would have at night. Okay. So that's state 2. Ordinary dream state. So, yeah, okay. Realm of illusion. Now, this is not characterized as either the realm of illusion or realm of spiritual phenomena. That sound sleep state is kind of neither this nor that. This is the Atma's unconscious sound sleep state. Now here, this would be 3 in the diagram that Baba drew in his own hand. This would be 4, the divine dream state. Soul experiencing subtle and mental planes. Semi-real consciousness. This is dreaming in full wakefulness, according to the chart that Baba drew before. And this one is state 5, wakeful sound sleep, God's conscious unitive state. Atma fully and really conscious. It doesn't say here wakefulness and sound sleep, but that's clearly what it corresponds to in the diagram that we saw before. And in Infinite Intelligence in the book, what page is that? It was the page you found before Eric was saying. Is that it?
This one, the 650.
Page 650.
650?
Yeah.
Well, 650 doesn't have much. You mean 648?
648.
648.
You call it
648.
simulation.
Yeah. But see, the interesting thing about 650,
It's very simple.
it's very simple. The reason I wanted to draw attention to that, maybe I have it here.
Oh yeah, it's front side of a telegram.
Yeah, this is the interesting thing.
But he can.
Let's see.
Yes,
What? That's page 650. Put it here so everybody can see it. Oops.
So there.
Yeah. I'll extend it a little bit here. The interesting thing about this is that this is appears on the back of a telegram, and this is in Erich's handwriting, 1954. Well, this is exactly the same as the diagram Baba drew, right? that one that you have in your packets with those same 5 states. And this is almost 30 years later. So obviously, Baba dictated this to Erich. Erich wouldn't have been thinking about these things for his own part. So this is, and to me, when I look at this, I think, well, this is the foundation of that chart in God Speaks we looked at just a minute ago. That's just a more elaborated version of this. So evidently, this is a very fundamental idea in Baba's mind, if we can talk about in Baba's mind, these 5 states. And there's a discussion of it in God's Hand that you could read if you want. It's around, I don't know, page 30 or something. And it's as if when you enter into the planes, it's like you're going onto the far side of sound sleep. That's my impressionistic description of it. Instead of the daily cycle this way, you start to cycle that way. So apparently you pass through, there's some kind of an experience or some kind of a metaphysical reality of passing through sound sleep as part of entering into the planes of consciousness. This is my interpretation of what I read there. So these states are very fundamental and very deeply significant. And they're part of, the whole cosmological picture. So that's what I wanted to do. These are a review of those. So to look at these once again.
So what?
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand the difference between false waking and false dream. So in false dream, which is that ordinary dream state,
Right.
you are conscious.
Well, you're semi-conscious. You're semi-conscious of the subtle sphere, Baba says.
Subtle sphere.
Yeah. Again, we have this correspondence. Wakefulness has a correspondence with the gross. Dream has a correspondence with the subtle. And sound sleep has a correspondence with the fine.
Okay.
You see how useful these terms are, why Baba would have used them, gross, subtle, and fine? It's because of this relationship between these 3 states. That's really what Baba wanted to talk about in Infinite Intelligence. Those 3 states, a major theme of his. So he didn't bring up the distinction between the subtle and the mental. That would confuse things. And Baba was never again able to discuss this quite so clearly. Because in God Speaks, Baba doesn't really explain the systematic relation between these 3 states, sound sleep, dream, wakefulness, and fine, subtle growth. He doesn't. It would have taken a lot more elaboration and explanation. So this is a real basic thing that Infinite Intelligence has to bring to the picture. Let me pull up this diagram. I don't know if you're finding this difficult or not. It sort of takes getting used to these ideas. So again, this is the whole picture. You see, in God Speaks, knowledge, power, bliss is really Baba's focus. And thus, the spheres are the mental, the subtle, and the gross. But in Infinite Intelligence, it's these 3 wakeful states that he keeps returning to. And the corresponding spheres are the fine, the subtle, and the gross.
You know, Ward, what I always feel, like in God Speaks, it's sort of like, it's a big picture.
Yeah.
Like when Baba speaks, the mental world which is not subtle or gross, which takes up infinity.
Yeah.
The subtle is all the energy that exists in the entire universe, and the gross is all material things.
Yeah.
The planets, the stars, and so forth. Doesn't God Speaks more or less describe that, and then Infinite Intelligence is like an individual, like the microcosm, the macrocosm.
Yeah.
It's just your world is being interpreted. Like, because in the Nothing and Everything, they talk about the planes and then the 7 heavens, which you probably don't want to get into because that's for the guys on the planes experiencing the other illusion of the planes.
Baba's talks to the boys explain all of that. Yeah.
Could you explain why gross fear in the divine nature is bliss and why subtle power is its power?
Yeah.
For me, I thought the gross fear would mean power.
Yeah. That's a topic. Why don't we go into that this afternoon? And next week, are you going to be here next week? Because we'll really go into it then, where we get into the three paths. But I'll just say that God Speaks does make it quite clear that our three bodies, the mental body, the subtle body, and the gross body, are the finite shadows of the divine natures of knowledge, power, and bliss. And it would make sense the mental body, the mind, would be a shadow of knowledge, right? That intuitively makes sense. And the subtle body is the body of prana, energy. You can do miracles in the subtle planes. All of that manifests in a state. The most difficult one is bliss. But we'll come on more to that even later on in this session or early this afternoon. It's really the gross plane. You see, these divine natures, when they come into the domain of duality, become the opposites. That is to say, knowledge becomes knowledge and ignorance. Right. Power becomes power and powerlessness. And bliss becomes happiness and misery. Right? Now, isn't the gross plane that?
Yeah.
Right? It's the greatest typification of it.
Well, remember once Bob described in some discourse or talk that money is the power of the gross plane, and energy is the power of the subtle plane, and of course, mental cognizance is the power of the mental plane. Yeah. So if you have money, man, you got gross power.
Right. It's like power manifesting gross.
Can lead to the.
But if I were to think of what is
experience of bliss,
like happiness and misery, of course those exist on all the planes. But it's sort of like the most direct emblem of them, in maybe it's just because I'm a gross conscious soul. Okay, would be things like eating, or excreting, or having sex, or having something damage done to my body. It's like the most immediate reflection of pleasure and pain is those things. So it's like the gross sphere typifies that attribute of bliss, what it becomes when it enters into duality. So but God Speaks goes into this a good bit, and there's one of the Tiffin lectures really goes into it. This is God Speaks theme, or one of its great themes. It's not. Infinite intelligence doesn't go into this at all. Doesn't even mention knowledge, power, bliss. And Baba was talking about it at that time in 26, 27, but not in this book. Because this is the relationship he wanted to talk about. These states and their correlation with the universes and the bodies, the gross, subtle, and fine bodies.
And like you said, there's no mention of love. Because bliss, power, infinite knowledge, and power, and bliss.
Yeah, love is not one of the natures of God. These are the three natures of God. Baba uses that term in kind of a technical sense, as a matter of fact.
And those are the natures of God in the imagination.
What's that?
In the imagination.
What?
The knowledge, power, and bliss.
The nature of God.
The nature of God.
They're actually the nature of God is God. But when they manifest in the imagination, when their shadows appear in the imagination, then they become the mental, the subtle, and the gross. So these principles are really, really powerful ones.
So
yeah.
Could you explain what happens when we to the sanskaras when we sleep?
They revert to latency.
So does it get reduced with the
They get reduced to nothing.
Nothing.
That is a point. You see how a point is nothing? Does everybody understand that? A point has no dimensions at all, mathematically, right? So it doesn't have any width, doesn't have any height, doesn't have any depth. It has 0 dimensions. Really speaking, a point has no existence in the physical universe. That's what happens to all of our sanskaras. They revert to the own point. Total latency. But in the original state of God God is the reality, and the entire created universe is a point of nothing in it. So it goes back to that state. That's what this is. This is all a point. Okay. So now I wanted to should I mention some of these? I'll come to some of those terms later. How Ishwar relates to all of this. Because Ishwar is the huge player in this whole story. And this is, I would say, the other huge topic that infinite intelligence really develops. Just as it develops these really thinking and imagination, but these other topics are more developed in infinite intelligence, more explicitly than anywhere else. But also Ishwar is. Now, Ishwar in India, you I'm sure know the words, right? Shri, it's God, basically just the Lord, right? A general term for the Lord. What it let me see. I'm trying to think how many of these terms I should hit you with. Are any of you acquainted with Vedanta at all? Yeah. In Vedanta, in the work of the great Shankara, who is the greatest philosopher of India, probably, he was a perfect master, died about 820. He uses Ishwar to refer to the theistic aspect of God. I'll try to explain a little bit of this, because this comes up a lot in infinite intelligence. It gives us the terms Nirgun and Sagun. Can you see those words? Nirgun and Sagun.
Good deeds and bad deeds.
Or gun means attributes, the quality or an attribute. So Nirgun means without qualities or attributes, and Sagun means with qualities or attributes. Okay? Now, what this is referring to is another fundamental theme in theosophy and theology. God can be, you can talk about God as having no attributes at all, or you can talk about God as having attributes. Now, God without attributes is unimaginable, is unapproachable. It's that infinite ocean that doesn't have color, it doesn't have shape, it doesn't have name.
God beyond.
I don't even know, but it's not necessarily sound asleep. It might be a wakeful state. It's actually the 8th state of God. That's what you experience in the 8th state of God, of the 10 states of God, without form and without attributes. So, like in that state, God doesn't have mercy. God is not the merciful one. God is there. 99 names, Allah in Islam. Those names most of those would not pertain to God without attributes. It's an infinite ocean in which there is no scope or space for creation at all, right? Now, that aspect of God is completely unapproachable to us. We have no way of thinking about it either. But God with attributes, that's the Sagun aspect of God, with attributes. That's the aspect of God that shows its face to creation. Like you'd say, the merciful one, or in Islam, the avenger. There's one of the names of God means that, or the one who is the Lord, the one who is the bestower, all these sorts of qualities. Those would be God with attributes. Now, when we come to the whole Ishwar, that is God with attributes. That's God as existing in relation to us, as imaginable by us, as approachable by us. So that's a very, this distinction is going to come up again next week when we talk about the divine theme and other things like that. So the word Ishwar is often used that way in India, in Vedanta and other schools of philosophy. I'm bringing that up because that is actually getting close to how Baba characterizes Ishwar. In infinite intelligence, Ishwar is God as creator, preserver, destroyer. these three comprise what God speaks characterizes as the third state of God. Let me show you this. We won't spend a lot of time on this table, but do you know this? Are you acquainted with this table, this chart, a lot of you?
No.
Yeah. This is the 9th chapter of God Speaks, which is very key chapter. But, okay, this is the beyond state of God. I won't go into its complexities. So God this is actually God without form and without attributes. And this is God as the perfect one, as the perfect master, with form and with attributes. This is the creator, preserver, destroyer aspect of God. And infinite intelligence has more to say about this than you'll find anywhere else in Baba's teachings. Now, this is the peculiarity of it. In this state, God creates, preserves, and destroys everything. But the strange thing is that Ishwar does not know that he's God. He doesn't experience the I am God state. And this is another one of these things that's kind of hard to explain. But Ishwar is unlimited. Ishwar can do anything, and he does anything and everything is done by Ishwar, really speaking. Ishwar is not bound. Ishwar is not limited. Ishwar is infinite. But the thing is that Ishwar never turns back to think of himself. It's sort of like Ishwar, you might say, is the ultimate extrovert. Ishwar is completely oriented towards the universe, the state of God. So that, like, if you ask for something, you're, say you're sick, and you, oh God, cure me, don't let me die, or, oh God, I need to have a job, or whatever it may be. It's Ishwar that would answer that. We'll see a lot more about that next week. It's that aspect of God that does. And Ishwar embodies perfect justice. All these qualities of God are manifested there. But Ishwar never stops for an instant to have the I am God experience. It's a very strange state of God here.
Does Ishwar know he or she is God?
No. I mean, if you were
creator looking down without knowing what it is.
Yeah, I know, it's very strange. I mean, I suppose if you were to meet Ishwar and say, hey Ishwar, are you God? Ishwar would probably say, yeah. But in the same way that I could say that too. But it's not my immediate experience at this moment. And apparently Ishwar does not experience it either. Because Ishwar is all the time focused on the universe.
Is it self-conscious?
No. No, apparently
So
not.
it's like not like us in that sense.
Yeah, no, there's no egoism there. No, there's nothing like that. Another way to say this is Ishwar is a principle.
Yeah.
Really speaking, Ishwar is completely incomprehensible. As we go into it more and more, I think we'll see that.
So,
all right?
would you call Ishwar Maya?
I would not say Ishwar is Maya itself. Maya, I would characterize as the principle of ignorance that makes the real appear to be the false, and what really exists appear to be non-existent, and what is non-existent appear to be existent. It's the principle that makes nothing seem like everything, and everything seem like nothing. And Ishwar is not that principle, but Ishwar is the one who does it.
So
Yeah.
if I yearn for something, that goes out in the infinite consciousness. And the dynamics, Ishwar would receive that.
If it was something relating to the universe, if it was a desire for something in the world, it would go to Ishwar, as a matter of fact. So Ishwar creates, preserves, and destroys infinitely. Now, in this diagram that we keep returning to because it's so fundamental, it's like what is it that causes this point of X to become the infinite universe? What is it that makes the most finite imagination appear to be the infinite imagination? What is it that creates the universe? It's Ishwar. This is Ishwar's domain. So Ishwar creates the universe, Ishwar sustains the universe, and Ishwar dissolves the universe. There is an aspect of God, there's a state of God that does this. This, you might say, is Ishwar's terrain. So we were talking yesterday about how our experience involves this interaction of thinking and imagination. Well, you weren't here yesterday. We'll talk about all this. But you remember all of that, right? Mm-hmm. So we think the imagination, that's the basis for our experience. Well, there is, in fact, a dude involved in that, Ishwar, who's constantly creating, preserving, and destroying the imagination for us. That's all the time going on. So Ishwar is a major player in this story. Remember all this, Mary Kay? Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, Ishwar. Yeah, we'll say. So this is we're going to look at Ishwar in relation to these cosmological principles now. Do you want to ask anything more about this or bring up anything more about this juncture?
Big juncture.
This juncture we're at right now.
So the archangels and angels are under Ishwar?
I presume so. I don't know.
Because he's involved.
Ishwar is the Lord of the universe, actually.
Yeah.
So everything within creation is part of Ishwar's domain.
So are you? Is he saying that Ishwar has some very subtle form because it's in, but it's too kind of or
Ishwar is actually formless, and but Ishwar is the creator and preserver and destroyer of all forms. Everything. All forms are created, preserved, and destroyed.
All the time on board?
Yeah.
Every second?
Yeah.
Well,
Every second.
couldn't you say that God, in some respects, has like 4 aspects? In that you have Ishwar, which is dealing with the illusion side. You've got the beyond God aspect, which is the opposite, which is the very fine nothing and latent potency of God. And then on the other 2 aspects, or those 2 spheres, you've got without attributes and with attributes.
Yeah.
As a made up, characteristics of God.
Yeah.
One more thing, what?
Well, let's see, with that probably gets us back to the 10 states of God chart, where we do have with attributes and without attributes.
And we're dealing with this illusory aspect.
Right. Ishwar himself is without attributes, but manifests infinite attributes.
Yeah. Is thinking aware of Ishwar or conscious of it at some point?
Well,
in any of those states?
I mean, it's almost hard to answer because Ishwar is omnipresent.
Omnipresent.
It's like, is the precondition of every experience.
Precondition of every
You can't experience anything without Ishwar's involvement. We'll be going into this more as we go into some of these other diagrams here about this. The role of Ishwar is mind-boggling, the extensiveness of it. But Ishwar, in brief, is the one who keeps negotiating this movement. Okay, we were talking about sound, sleep, dream, wakefulness, right? In sound sleep, everything is there. In dream, everything is subtle, right? And in wakefulness, the universe is gross, manifest as gross, right? We were talking about that correlation here.
Yeah.
Ishwar is the one who keeps creating, preserving, and destroying all of this, back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth. And all experience depends on Ishwar doing these things. So
Ishwar doing these things?
Creating, preserving, destroying the universe all the time. On the universal scales and on individual
Beyond
scales.
our control, as thinking.
Yeah, well, but we experience it. Ishwar is the precondition of thinking, of false thinking. Is the precondition of false thinking.
Okay.
Because there's no imagination for us to think if the imagination has not been created, right?
Right.
So, who's going to create it? Ishwar. So Ishwar, you see, yesterday we were talking about thinking the imagination, but we didn't ask the question, who creates this imagination? Of course, The irony is that actually the imagination is never created at all because it doesn't exist. So Ishwar is the ultimate trafficker in nothing.
He had so much time to that, you know?
Yeah, but Ishwar is constantly making nothing look like everything and everything look like nothing. Everything, this is turned into that, and that is turned into that. And Ishwar does it to an unlimited degree all the time.
So, think like an earthquake.
Yeah.
That's Ishwar.
Yeah, all those developments. We'll talk more about this. We're coming into this. I want to be sure we get to sound, sleep, dream, wakefulness to show. I mean, it's actually completely mind-boggling, the role that this Ishwar plays. The human mind really can't begin to comprehend it. It leaves you in total bewilderment. If the third state of God is like this, holy smokes, what is the beyond state like? You know?
We don't want to go there. But, Ward, can I please ask if you can explain that access, the one with the X on top?
Yeah.
This one, yeah, that one, the one
here?
Yeah, the one that Ishwar is taking care of.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that